Cartel boss Gustavo Fring received a report that all the money had been stolen from his casino, and when he found out who had done it, he smashed all the decorations in his office. The cartel's right-hand man stole all his savings, but you'll find out how it happened in a few seconds. Before that, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to my channel. It motivates me, and write a comment saying what time you're watching this video. And now, here's how it all began. The neon-drenched air of Vegas Nuevo, a fictional, dusty extension of the Las Vegas sprawl in the late 1980s, was built on two things: luck and lies. Leo the Lion Ricci, the undisputed king of this shadow economy, controlled the biggest offshore casino, the Obsidian Club, and his empire's veins ran deep into local business. His right-hand man, the stoic and hyper-efficient Cal Thorne, was the one who made the machinery work. Cal was everything Leo wasn't: quiet, meticulous, and seemingly devoid of ambition beyond serving his boss. He handled the books, the security, and the endless stream of necessary cleanups. But the quiet efficiency masked a slow-burning fuse. 10 months prior, Cal's younger brother, Danny, a former driver for Leo, had attempted a foolish, small-scale robbery against one of Leo's satellite operations. He was caught. Within 48 hours, Danny's car was found abandoned on Route 95, and Danny was gone. The unofficial word, delivered to Cal with a chillingly sympathetic pat on the back by Leo himself, was that Danny had fled. Cal knew better. He saw the faint, almost invisible scorch mark on the polished marble floor of Leo's private office. He heard the barely audible sound of the industrial incinerator running for 3 hours straight the next morning. Cal's loyalty died that day. His meticulous planning for revenge began. The air in the Obsidian Club's vault was thick with the metallic scent of old money and the hum of the cooling systems. Cal, wearing his standard-issue charcoal suit, stood alone before the two steel doors. He'd signed off on the daily cash transfer just hours earlier. $2.4 million in unmarked bills, destined for an overseas investment. This was routine. What wasn't routine was the specialized encryption bypass device he held in his gloved hand, a piece of kit he'd secretly commissioned from a disgraced tech out of Reno. He pressed a button. A faint, almost musical whirring sound filled the silence. The doors slid open. Cal worked fast. He bypassed the internal silent alarm. He knew the system's programming better than its creator. He didn't take the entire load. $3 million was reported to be there. Taking the full amount would signal professional work. Leaving the extra $600,000 made it look like a panicked amateur job, or perhaps someone who didn't know the exact amount. The truth was, Cal had only needed the money to disappear and to ensure Leo would know who had done it. On top of the stack of cash, he left a single, pristine white napkin, folded like an origami crane, a secret symbol he and his brother used as kids. He exited the vault at 12:21 a.m. No one saw him. No one could. He'd reprogrammed the hallway's single security camera feed, a common blind spot, to loop a few minutes of tranquil, empty hallway footage. August 18th, 1988, 1:45 a.m. The getaway was a masterpiece of misdirection. Cal didn't use a back alley or a fast car. He used a delivery route. He drove a battered white catering van, rented weeks ago under a fake identity and stashed near the warehouse, right up to the rear entrance of the Hungry Jackpot Diner, one of Leo's legitimate fronts. The van smelled faintly of stale fryer oil and bleach, a strong, distracting scent that cut through the desert night air. He changed out of his suit in the back, pulling on oil-stained coveralls. He had 45 minutes to get out of Vegas Nuevo's jurisdictional perimeter and into the desolate, unforgiving stretch of Highway 93 before the next shift change discovered the vault breach. At 2:37 a.m., Cal was speeding east, the desert a dark, endless sheet of black on either side. He checked his rearview mirror, seeing only the twin red dots of the van's tail lights reflected in the darkness. Then, a sudden, blinding flash erupted behind him, followed milliseconds later by a thunderous, ripping sound. The catering van, the one he had driven less than an hour ago, was gone. A massive fireball bloomed against the black canvas of the night sky, throwing shattered metal fragments and a cloud of debris across the road. The force of the blast shook the van he was currently driving. Cal had a backup plan for Leo's inevitable pursuit. A secondary, identical catering van, pre-rigged with a dummy torso and an industrial-grade explosive, parked 4 miles down the road from the hungry jackpot. He'd switched vehicles in a deep, unlit service garage just outside the city limits, a move executed in under 3 minutes. Leo would find a body matching Cal's general build, incinerated and unrecognizable, a perfect, tragic end to an inside job. Leo would think he won. August 18th, 1988, 9 a.m. The crime scene was a grim tableau of twisted metal and scorched earth. The official report, signed by Sheriff Thomas Blake, a man whose tenure seemed to be financially guaranteed by Leo Ricci's quiet generosity, was immediate and conclusive. Vegas Nuevo security chief Calvin Thorne, driven to desperation by crippling gambling debts, robbed the Obsidian Club vault of $2.4 million. While fleeing in a stolen catering van, the vehicle exploded due to a faulty, illegally modified propane tank. The discovery of the single origami crane, burned but identifiable, was interpreted by Blake as a suicide note, a final, macabre flourish by a broken man. The media fed a steady stream of carefully curated facts, painted Cal as the classic tragic villain. The city sighed in collective relief. The money was gone, but the immediate crisis was over. 2 men, however, found no relief. Detective Frank, the Method Carver, a veteran homicide detective with 2 decades of service, stood beside the charred debris. Carver was methodical, his graying hair and permanently tired eyes betraying years spent staring into the abyss of human motive. He knelt down, the smell of burnt plastic and diesel fuel heavy in the air. Faulty tank, Sheriff. Carver's voice was a low rasp. That debris pattern is radiating out, not up. That's a detonation, not an ignition. Sheriff Blake, a big man with sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool desert morning, didn't meet his eye. The state lab will confirm, Frank. Highly unstable cargo, maybe some cleaning chemicals in the van. Look, the man's been identified. His dental records were recovered enough. His jacket was found 3 feet from the main blast. But Carver noticed the lack of blood spatter. A human body at the epicenter of that kind of blast, even incinerated, left something. Archive, official incident report excerpt. Human remains, partial dental records, and a gold-plated wristwatch, confirmed as Thorne's personal property, were located. The explosive device is concluded to be an unstable, non-commercial propane/fuel mixture. Protocol, page 4. The case was quickly filed as the Thorne incident, closed and sealed. $2.4 million remained an unresolved liability on the Obsidian Club's books, a minor expense for Leo Ricci, who had already begun construction on a new VIP lounge. But the young, newly assigned Detective Elias Vance, Carver's Jr., saw the file as an insult to logic. Vance, fresh out of the academy, was an enthusiast for forensic accounting and data analysis, armed with the precinct's brand-new, bulky IBM computer. While Carver focused on the blast pattern, Vance dove into Cal Thorne's seemingly flawless financial history. He didn't have any gambling debts, Detective Carver, Vance announced one cold December morning, pushing a stack of microfiches across Carver's desk. The light from a projector made Vance's face look pale and determined. His credit was immaculate. His only unusual transaction was a $500 payment, 6 months ago, to a company called Precision Logistics in Reno, listed as a consulting fee. Carver leaned in, rubbing his eyes. Precision Logistics? Sounds like a front for a chop shop, son. A guy planning a heist might need a new identity or a vehicle. I looked them up, Vance countered, his fingers stabbing at the microfiche image. They dissolved 3 months after Cal's payment. But here, he placed a smaller, curled piece of thermal paper next to the microfiche. It was an archived photocopy, barely readable. Archive, copy of financial record. Receipt, Reno bus station. Date, August 18th, 88. Time, 3:15 a.m. Vendor, ticket booth number 3. Amount, $47. Destination, Goldwater, Arizona. Item: one-way ticket. Archival photocopy. Calvin Thorne was supposedly vaporized on Highway 93 around 2:37 a.m. The Reno bus station was a good 40-minute drive from the blast site, in the completely wrong direction for Goldwater, a small, sleepy mining town in Arizona. This ticket, found in an audit box of the Obsidian Club's expense reports, filed as transportation for an overseas VIP, was dated less than 40 minutes after the explosion. It's a throwaway receipt, Vance. Anyone could have bought it. A client, a cleaner, anyone, Carver said, but his voice lacked conviction. He picked up the faded paper. It smelled faintly of cleaning solution and burnt oil. Vance pointed to the corner of the receipt. Look at the stamp. It's faint. CKT. 3 initials. The only 3 initials on record that were authorized to sign off on VIP transport expenses for Leo Ricci. Calvin Carl Thorne. The realization hit Carver like a physical blow. The origami crane was a symbol of revenge, not surrender. The ticket was a ghost's farewell. The man wasn't dead. He had been a ghost from the moment his brother was disappeared. The whole explosion was a cinematic distraction, paid for by the victim himself, a final, cruel twist of the knife to the man who killed his brother. Carver looked up at Vance. He didn't die for the money. He did it for Danny. And he's somewhere out there, waiting for the smoke to clear. The case was closed, the record sealed, and the community had moved on. But a one-way ticket to a forgotten town, filed under a false expense and signed with the ghost initials, had just ripped the dust cover off the crime of the decade. Who else knew the truth? And why did they bury the evidence? If you want to know what they found in Goldwater 10 years later, and how a second, seemingly unrelated murder cracked the whole conspiracy wide open, subscribe and write in the comments where you are watching from. The official file on the Thorne incident had gathered 10 years of dust in the basement of the Vegas Nuevo Sheriff's Department, but its ghost-haunted detective Frank Carver. He never forgot the faint initials CKT on the expense receipt, a signature on a suicide note. For a decade, Carver maintained a grueling, methodical routine, now promoted to captain but no less tired. He carried the failure of the case like an old wound. Meanwhile, Elias Vance, now a sharp-minded detective, was the precinct's vanguard of the new millennium, fluent in the emerging languages of digital forensics and Benford's Law, the very techniques that were rare in the late 80s, but becoming standard by the late 90s. The year was 1998. The Thorne case was inadvertently cracked open by an entirely separate tragedy, 300 miles away in Arizona. July 14th, 1998, 9 a.m. The town of Goldwater, Arizona, was a dying, sun-baked remnant of a 19th century mining boom. It consisted of 2 streets, one functioning diner, and a post office that smelled perpetually of old paper and dust. The police force was 1 overworked chief and a part-time deputy. The victim was Evelyn Harper, a sweet, elderly woman who ran the local antique shop, the last real hub of the community. She hadn't been robbed. She'd been strangled in her sleep. The local sheriff, desperate, requested assistance from Nevada, citing the old bus receipt found in the Vegas Nuevo archives connecting someone to Goldwater. Vance and Carver drove the route, the same one Calvin Thorne was suspected to have taken. This Goldwater ticket, Vance, it's nothing but conjecture, Carver grumbled, the heat already making his polyester shirt stick. Vance disagreed, already poring over a new database of archived business registrations on his chunky laptop, a cutting-edge piece of kit for the police force. The old man who owned that Reno logistics company, Precision Logistics, the one Cal paid $500? He died 4 years ago. Guess where he retired and bought a house? Vance flipped the screen around. Goldwater, Arizona. The proximity was beyond coincidence. They arrived at Evelyn Harper's small adobe house. The scene was neat, almost clinical. The only thing missing was her most prized possession, a battered, old metal filing cabinet she kept in the back of her shop, which locals said contained decades of local gossip, deeds, and personal letters. July 15th, 1998, 11:30 a.m. The detectives began the painstaking process of profiling Evelyn's contacts. Vance, applying modern forensic accounting techniques to Evelyn's meager bank records, found something startling. Evelyn Harper, the woman who took in less than $10,000 a year from her shop, had been receiving a single, identical cashier's check for $3,500 every quarter for the last 9 years. The checks were drawn from a small, anonymous bank in a border town in Texas, always signed simply CK. CK, Vance whispered, glancing at the old file's initials, Calvin Carl Thorne. He didn't just disappear, Captain. He bought a retirement plan for the one person who could help him stay disappeared. Carver's pulse quickened. He paid her for silence, and she was killed not for her antiques, but for what she was keeping in that cabinet. The archive. The team established a profile for CK, a man in his late 40s, highly intelligent, capable of long-term planning, and financially secure. They needed to find the archive, the hidden truth that Calvin Thorne left with Evelyn. Archive. Transcript from Evelyn Harper's last known phone call, recorded by her neighbor's answering machine. Sound of static and a woman's shaky voice. I told you I was going to send it all back. The money. I can't keep doing this, Carl. It's too much. Leo's men have been asking questions around town, quiet ones. I think they know. I need you to come get to the box. Click, line goes dead. The name she used, Carl. It was close enough to Cal, and the mention of Leo's men was a jolt of pure adrenaline. Leo Ricci was still ruling Vegas Nuevo, and his reach was clearly longer than the detectives had realized. The key to the archive was not finding Cal Thorne himself, but finding the man who had bought the one-way ticket for him. Vance cross-referenced the Reno ticket booth surveillance, long gone, with Precision Logistics' internal payroll. Only one junior employee had resigned the day after Cal's death and moved to Mexico, Javier Cruz. October 2nd, 1998, 4 p.m. Carver and Vance tracked Cruz to a tiny fishing village in Baja. He was nervous, jumpy, but deeply relieved when they showed him the photo of Evelyn Harper. She was good to me, Cruz said, sitting in a plastic chair outside his shack, the salt air stinging his eyes. Carl. He said she was family, the only one he trusted. I bought the ticket for Carl and dropped him off. He paid me enough to disappear to... Cruz revealed the biggest missing piece, the contents of the catering van that exploded. It wasn't a dummy, Cruz admitted, fear palpable in his voice. It was the wrong van. The one I drove was empty. The other van, the one Cal bought, it had all of Leo's private security surveillance tapes from the night Danny was killed. Cal had been copying them for months. The crane he left? It wasn't a suicide note. It was a taunt. He gave Leo the one piece of evidence that could link Danny's death to the club, and he blew it up. The $2.4 million heist was only the collateral damage. The real prize was the destruction of the evidence archive, ensuring Leo Ricci thought the truth was obliterated along with Cal. Transcript. Audio fragment from Leo Ricci's interrogation. 1988. Reopened file. Leo Ricci, panting, that damn Thorne. He took the money, the coward. If I ever find him, I'll finish what the fire started. Carver, archival. Did he take anything else, Mr. Ricci? Files, maybe? Ricci, after a long, tense silence, just the cash. The rest is sealed. You're looking in the wrong place, detective. Leo had been lying. He thought Cal destroyed the evidence. But if Cal had truly wanted the evidence gone, why would he leave an expense receipt pointing to Goldwater, Arizona? The investigation shifted back to Goldwater. The murdered woman, Evelyn Harper, had only been Cal's custodian. She was killed because she was ready to return the box to Cal after Leo's men started asking around. Vance found the box, a small lead-line cash box hidden in the floorboards beneath Evelyn's stove. It wasn't the surveillance tapes, which Cal had surely burned. It was a single, meticulously preserved journal and one crucial artifact. Archive, photograph and journal entry. The artifact was a pristine, unburned matchbook from the Obsidian Club's VIP lounge. On the inside cover, handwritten in Cal Thorne's neat script, was a name and a date. J. Maxwell, August 17th, 88, 12:45 a.m. Archival photo of matchbook. The journal, kept by Cal's deceased brother, Danny detailed the real reason for Danny's original failed robbery. Danny wasn't stealing for greed. He was trying to retrieve incriminating files his friend, James Maxwell, a high-ranking accountant at the Obsidian Club, was selling to a competing cartel. Leo found out about the deal through Cal, who had a direct line to the casino system. Leo killed Danny not for the small theft, but for the potential betrayal. Cal had unwittingly condemned his own brother. The twist, Cal's meticulous planning and revenge had blinded him. He had convinced himself Leo had killed Danny purely out of bloodlust in an attempt to cover up a theft. The journal showed that Danny was a pawn in a larger corporate betrayal orchestrated by James Maxwell, the real architect of the internal conspiracy. Maxwell, Carver breathed, the name ringing a bell. He was Leo Ricci's CFO. He disappeared 6 months after the Thorn incident. The Goldwater murderer wasn't Leo Ricci's men, but James Maxwell himself. Maxwell, fearing the truth of his initial betrayal would come out, saw Evelyn's quarter-annual cashier checks and realized Cal Thorn was alive and paying for a secret archive. When Evelyn's panic phone call mentioned Leo's men and returning the box to Carl, Maxwell, now living quietly under an assumed name in a nearby town, struck first. He killed Evelyn to retrieve the evidence that tied him to the initial leak that had gotten Danny Thorn killed. The matchbook was the key. It wasn't Cal's clue to the police. It was a fragment of the conversation Cal had with Maxwell on the night of the heist. Calvin Thorne's journal, final entry, 1988. I saw Maxwell after the heist, waiting by the loading dock. He looked relieved. He kept talking about how Leo was finished now. I told him he was right. I took everything. I had to let him believe the tapes were gone, that I had won, that Leo lost it all. But he was too calm. I should have asked why he was there at 12:45 a.m. I was so focused on Leo, I missed the real snake in the garden. The man who truly betrayed Danny. Calvin Thorne had planned the perfect crime and the perfect fake death, fueled by a decade of righteous rage against Leo Ricci. But his revenge was misdirected. He had stolen from the wrong villain. November 1998. Vance used the initials, the dates, and the financial records found in Evelyn's home, tying Maxwell's current finances to the defunct Precision Logistics and his movements in Goldwater. The financial trail of James Maxwell, who had been quietly laundering his own embezzled funds for a decade, proved to be his undoing, thanks to Vance's methodical forensic accounting. James Maxwell was arrested outside a Tucson country club. He quickly confessed to Evelyn Harper's murder and the full scope of his betrayal involving Danny Thorn. He admitted to killing Evelyn to protect his decade of freedom. The $2.4 million remained lost, scattered through a web of offshore accounts that proved impossible to fully track, a constant, frustrating phantom. Leo Ricci, his casino's reputation now permanently tarnished by the exposure of the conspiracy and the confession of his former CFO, was forced into a series of crippling regulatory fines. The media-feeding frenzy that followed Maxwell's arrest damaged Ricci's empire beyond repair. While the evidence to link Leo directly to Danny's murder was still missing, burned in the desert, the moral verdict was delivered by the public. Within a year, the Obsidian Club was seized by creditors. Leo Ricci disappeared into the criminal underworld he truly belonged to. Calvin Thorne was never found. He became the true ghost of Vegas Nuevo. He achieved his goal. The downfall of Leo Ricci, a consequence far more significant than any prison sentence. He had disappeared with the money, the meticulous journal entry being his final act of justice. He was not a hero, nor a simple villain, but a desperate, broken man seeking vengeance for a lost brother. Carver and Vance closed the case, officially listing Calvin Thorne as a fugitive, but unofficially, they had solved the Thorne incident and a Harper murder. They stood on the edge of the Goldwater Desert, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and purple. He got away with it, Vance observed, zipping up the evidence box containing Danny's journal. Carver simply nodded, staring at the vast, unforgiving landscape. He didn't just get away with the money, son. He got away with the truth. And sometimes in this business, that's all a ghost needs to finally rest. The $2.4 million remained a legend, a story whispered in the Vegas Nuevo shadows, a symbol of a man who lost everything, only to take a king's ransom in revenge.